I've heard it said that in this business, if you will treat it like a job, the return will be there. I've heard it said that. I've heard people say about this business, you should treat it like a job. Treat it like a job. And to an extent, I agree with that saying, and I know I've said it. But unfortunately, that phrase, that thought process can mislead people into thinking something that's just not true. Here's what I mean, plain and simple. Business ownership mindset. Now, if I'm treating this like a job and I put in 40 hours a week, at the end of 2 weeks, I'm expecting that paycheck. When you own a business and you put in 40 hours a week, at the end of 2 weeks, you may not have anything. It may not be there yet. I mean, it's kind of like the idea of a farmer planting corn and 2 weeks later expecting the harvest to be there. He knows that's not the case, and he's got to plant more corn, and he's got to do the work to end up getting the results. But it is a mindset that I want to challenge you in that we are not spending 40 hours a week working. We are investing 40 hours a week in our own business. It's a big difference.
It's a huge difference, and it's probably one of the greatest reasons that people fail because of their expectations around the time or the money that they put in and how quickly they'd get a return. But it's fair because if you think about it, we've all been taught from a young age, you're taught, hey, do a chore and you get an allowance. You're told, oh, you want to buy a car when you're 16? Well, you need to go get a job. So we've been trained our whole lives to think, well, I can go get a job, I can go do a task, and I will get paid in return. So it's not really a wonder that this is one of the largest challenges that people have to overcome when they decide to start a business. This entrepreneur, some people have this big dreaming, big risk-taking that just comes naturally, and they're not afraid of putting in big and failing.
Right.
But the majority of people, it's opposite. We don't like the idea of failure. We don't want to put in, invest big, and not get back out. And so I think it's why it really would be what I would classify as the number one reason that people do not succeed in building their own business in the insurance industry. It's because their expectations are out of line when it comes to this concept of investing in their business. It cannot be a trading. It has to be more of a planting. When a farmer goes to plant, so if they were to say, well, I'm going to plant one row of crops and then I'm going to stop and I'm going to wait for them to grow and wait for the rain to fall and wait to see what happens with that one row. Well, then when harvest time comes, they don't have anything. So they would say, oh, farming doesn't work.
Yeah.
Because they fail to understand that you have to keep just plowing, keep planting and growing, and it will reap a harvest all at the same time. And so we see that often, that as these people, as insurance agents get started in this business, they have to go through the learning curve process. And in the beginning, oftentimes what they're putting in, they're not getting the same return. But then all of a sudden, almost like magic, something changes through the process of that learning curve, and all of a sudden they're actually getting a much greater return than for the amount of leads they're buying or the amount of time that they're putting in. So it's so important that people understand this is not a trading. It's also very much almost like the priming the pump. Sorry,
Yeah.
I said it backwards.
I got to jump in because you're just dealing with different perceptions, different realities than what you would at a normal 9-to-5 job. I was listening to an interview the other day, and I won't name names, or I won't even be specific and exact in the numbers that I'll quote. But I'm listening to this interview, and this guy that's being interviewed is the CEO of the largest mortgage company in the country. They do currently, I don't know, $100 billion or something like that a year in loans. It's crazy what they do, and they have finally gotten to like $1 billion in loans or something. It took them 15 years. They had 900 employees or something crazy. I'm getting numbers wrong, but you get the idea. Like they were at a billion after 15 years, and his coach, his advisor, his mentor said, "You're going to double next year." I mean, what you're going to see over the next 5 years is you're going to go exponential. And the guy was like, you're crazy. It took us 15 years and 900 employees to get here. And then it was like 5 more years. They grew to nearly 100 billion, and they went from 900 employees to 10,000. The timeline, the compression of time frames, it's not the same as working the 9 to 5. The 9 to 5, you get into work at 8, you get off at 5, and you're facing traffic, and at the end of 2 weeks you get paid, and after 60 years they give you a nice gold watch and you die, right? I mean, it's kind of, so it's, I remember with our own business, I felt like, man, we were pumping and pumping and pumping and pumping, and nothing was coming, and we're fighting, and I can't make rent. We're fighting, and I'm 120 days late on credit card payments, like, And then finally one day it was like, whoa, we just got paid $10,000 this week.
Right.
And then, whoa, we just got paid $15,000 this week. We just got paid $20,000 this week. We just hired another $50,000 a year employee. It's like, what is going on? And it seemed like it was such a fight to get to that breakthrough place. But then after that, it was just exponential how fast things were moving.
I know you're making me think of the word momentum, and I'm gonna stop right there, because to me you're describing momentum, and we want to stay on business ownership, but we're going to do a podcast on momentum. I'm gonna make sure that happens. Because you're exactly right. It's what happens in the beginning. It's a slow investment, and then there is this convergence of time, effort, investment that happen, and momentum happens. But another part of that process of the business ownership and the beginning stages of investing properly in your business is it's very important to practice delayed gratification. This was something that I think, because really naturally we're not those massive risk takers. We did fairly naturally in the beginning. We wanted to live conservative. We had come from such a broken financial place that when we finally began to be able to pay our bills in a timely manner, we didn't want to do anything to mess that up. So we definitely didn't want to too quickly increase our lifestyle or way of living. So in the beginning, we had gotten a business established, but we chose to, we stayed in a rental townhome.
Yep.
We rented an office that we could walk to across the street.
Yep.
We stayed with one car. And this was all at a time that we were actually beginning to accumulate extra payments in a month that we were not expecting.
Yeah.
We were even beginning at that time, we got to the point that we started making large payments of $5,000 to pay off that credit card, or $10,000 to pay off that credit card. But we didn't do that initially.
No.
Initially, when we would make profits out of the business, we would turn around and put those profits back into the business.
Yeah, yeah.
And again, this is a mentality that some people struggle with, because they feel like, well, I put a financial or timely investment in, and I did get some money back, and I need that money to pay my bills. And it's an interesting balance in the beginning, because obviously people have to eat and pay their bills. But the extra money needs to be reinvested back in the business, not put into increasing lifestyles, taking trips, doing things that are extra.
And I don't want to break your flow, but in my mind, I immediately go back to being in the townhome across the street from the office. Next door neighbor would come over and bring a DVD, and we're dating ourselves now. Bring over a DVD so we could watch a movie. And I'm like, what are you going to do with that? He said, let's watch a movie. Like, we only have a VCR. We got a VHS cassette. If you got one of those, we can watch it. He said, why don't you have a DVD player? My gosh, what's wrong with you? But back in those days, a DVD player was $500-$600.
It costs a lot of money.
And in my mind, $500 or $600. If I put $500 or $600 into leads, I could get back $5,000 or $6,000 in premium. I was thinking if I took $500 or $600, I could run another newspaper ad for recruiting, and I might hire another agent off of that is going to increase my monthly income by $1,000 a month. So the DVD player didn't make sense. And we see that where people are building this business, they're making some money, and I deserve that DVD player. Not if you're building a business. You got to put that money back in, and then later on buy a whole DVD company if you want to. But it's just a. Sorry, I interrupted your flow, but I immediately went to that of we didn't even have a DVD player.
Right.
We had one car.
Yeah.
People are like, why do you have one car? Because if I need a car at the same time she's using the car, I can go rent one.
Right.
Way cheaper than a car payment, way cheaper than the insurance on another car, a second car. It just made sense.
That's right. Yeah, it's that concept. If you've got to build your fields before you can build your house.
Yeah.
And so it's all of these principles we're talking about are a mentality shift that will help you go from living a job mentality, even sometimes that self-employed mentality, into a true business ownership mentality. And this is, again, we've talked about this on this podcast, but something we're passionate about teaching people because it is our life message. We went from barely getting by to really a self-employed mentality or ability, and we've had an opportunity to transition into being business owners. And so we're passionate about helping other people do that see that and have a dream for that in their own lives. So we're sharing this with you today in hopes that it might encourage you, might give you the gumption to do the things that you know you need to do so you can get your business to the place that you see it in the future.
Yep.
We're passionate about talking about this topic of business ownership, but we want to know what you're passionate about hearing about. What questions that you might have that we could address on this podcast, or topics that you would love to hear about? Feel free to send in an email, fits@fitsgroup.org.
Not .com.
That's right. ORG, fits, and that's FITZ. fits@fitsgroup.org. Feel free to send in any requests or questions you may have, and we'll do our best to put that in to the lineup here of our podcast.
If you've enjoyed what we talked about today, I recommend that you look at getting signed up, getting registered for one of our free quarterly events that we do. You can go to thefitsgroup.org/event registration. thefitsgroup.org/event registration to find out when our next quarterly event is going to be. In those quarterly events, we cover topics like today on a much deeper level, and there's a lot more opportunity for personal conversation and dialogue about it. So I go there and find out when our next quarterly event is going to be. And hey, now that you know, you know.